Confession time. I have never actually seen Death Note the anime, at least not to completion. I remember I stopped somewhere before or after the Naomi Misora plot and then never got around to finish it. See, my first introduction to Death Note was through the Japanese live-action movies. Brilliant pieces of work, by the way. There used to be this TV channel called Animax, where they would run these live-action movies alongside 20-ish other anime, the likes of Nana, Inuyasha, Kaleido Star, you know, the old school. And I remember the movies were so mesmerizing, the moment they ended I immediately went on the internet to search for more Death Note. That's when I got my hands on the manga, and even to this day it's still my favorite manga of all time. After so many years, Death Note is still fairly relevant, being one of the most well-known anime out there, having the Netflix adaptation fiasco revive it in public consciousness a couple of years ago, and now doing it again, trending worldwide with a brand new one-shot made by the original duo. But despite its popularity and the countless discussions happening around it, no one seems to talk or even mention the most pivotal character in the second part of Death Note. The total wildcard that Light couldn't predict, Mello the Maniac. I've always seen Mello as the younger version of Light, and this may or may not have been the intention of the author, since there are a bit too many similarities between them. From the way both let their emotions get the best of them, both being represented by a guitar in their theme songs, to even using the same lines and keeping the same meaning. Mello, unfortunately, didn't get too much screen time. The poor guy was left untouched for a good amount of time, even though his few actions had a significant impact on the overall plot. To be fair, the manga doesn't do him justice. Even the author said that it was hard to find a place for him. What a shame. A sugar freak, slightly crazy, actually maniacal bastard would have spiced out the story big time. But here I come to shine some light on this chaotic genius. What fascinates me about Mello is that he represents an archetype that's still somewhat unusual in anime. The over-emotional genius and morally bankrupt ideologue. Someone who would do absolutely everything to satisfy his lust for victory. If Kira was the villain, Mello arguably embodies the role of the hero more so than anyone else. While L and to a certain extent Nier care more about the game itself and how to win, both fighting for their pride and the win at any cost, crossing some pretty clear moral lines, Mello actually took into account other people. Now, morals are a very touchy and debatable topic in the Death Note story, but without getting too much into them, L was the kind of person who'd make use of those around him but not truly rely on anyone. All of his plans depended on him and him alone. This was due to how L has lived his entire life as an unparalleled genius. On the other hand, Mello grew up in his shadow and was never under the illusion of being the best at anything. He indeed relied on other people. He trusted and cared for Matt, who is revealed to be the third smartest person from Yami's house. He had a weird close connection with Lindner that provided him with valuable information, and there's arguably some fondness between the two. Relying on others was what allowed him to come up with a solution and create one of the most intricate and satisfying ploys of the story that would depend on Nier ultimately doing his part and putting the last pieces of the puzzle together. Mello chose and accepted to lose a battle for the war to be won. The idea of relying on others would have been just about inconceivable to L as it was to Nier, and that was a big part of his downfall. Compared to L, Nier is somewhat too complex. As the younger and fragile one, he's been isolated and protected his entire life to the point that the idea of acting directly is almost beyond him. It's something Nier simply cannot comprehend. This weird blend of fear and pride kept him from taking any big risks and would have put Light entirely beyond his reach if it hadn't been for Mello. I would argue that Light would have taken Nier out with relative ease if it hadn't been for this impulsive maniac. Thus, in Mello, Death Note managed to create a character that was willing to sacrifice himself to solve the case. Someone who'd put himself and his pride on the second place. Initially, I thought Mello was just some half-developed character that the plot threw in to create some contrived obstacle and force the other characters in whatever direction the narrative needed them to go. But as his plan slowly came together and all the moving parts were revealed, I couldn't help but be impressed. Every action had a purpose, every reaction was in line with the character's personality, which itself made perfect sense in the context of his upbringing. Something that I would only expect from Light himself. It's a shame that hardly anyone even mentions this character at all. Death Note has a great cast, and most of the story, arguably the best part, happens between Light and L. Sometimes Nier is mentioned too, but Mello, not quite. Having read Death Note Another Note, the book written by Nishio Ishin which is narrated by Mello, I kind of wish he was used more in the original story. Because while people have written so many posts on how L and Nier are very different, yet I'd say there are two similar except the quirks, a battle that focuses more on Mello versus Light would have brought up a really fresh dynamic, rather than continuing the cold and calculating battle of wits. Having someone extremely intelligent yet way more emotional and unpredictable versus Light who fluctuates between calculated and impulsive would have been an immense joy. Mello is a fantastic character that gets unfairly overlooked due to having the bad luck of being lumped in with an iconic cast. But when stripped of by his presentation, Mello is more considerate than L and more rational than Nier.